Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I want to talk about a fall pattern that can change a bad fishing outing into a good fishing outing. And this is something that goes very under discussed. I don't know why we don't ever talk about this pattern, but it's one that's extremely simple and it holds up no matter where you're at, regardless of species you're after. Smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, down south, up north, this pattern holds true. And before I get into what this is, I do want to remind you guys that if you're looking for some help on your local lakes, check out the one-on-one virtual lessons that I do, as well as the lake breakdowns that I do through fishthemoment.com. The link for those are in my video description. Plus, if you enjoy my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, guys, it would be very much appreciated if you subscribe to the channel. It's a good way to support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything to do it, so if you enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button. And hopefully it's tips like these that make you come back to my channel, because all the tips that I give are well proven based on my experience and other anglers' experience. And a lot of those anglers are professional level anglers that are, helping me catch more fish, just like I'm trying to help you guys catch more fish. And this fall pattern is one that simply revolves around the spawn. And now that doesn't make any sense, right? Because the spawn happens in the spring. But the key here is when you have water temperatures that are dropping from summertime levels down to about turnover, that first part of the fall transition, there's a big migration of fish, regardless of the bass species, that return to their spawning grounds. Now that sounds weird, but there's a couple of reasons they do that. One, the bait fish migrations generally take place back to those areas that the fish were using to spawn. What I mean by that is the shad move shallow, they'll move into the backs of the creeks. If you're on a panfish lake with good grass, the bluegill, the perch will move shallow. If you're on a lake that may have a lot more of your pelagic type fish, whether they're Cisco or herring, they'll move shallow. Cisco spawn in the fall months. So there's a lot of bait fish that start moving shallow. And when that happens, keep in mind that the crayfish at that point as well are starting to get a little bit active before they hibernate, which takes place around the same temperature as a fall turnover does. So there's just a lot of forage movement that takes place. And therefore the bass are actively feeding up for the fall and the winter, and therefore they're following the bait fish that they're feeding on. So that's one reason your spawning grounds are good. Another is because generally speaking, spawning grounds are hard bottom areas. By hard bottom, I'm not necessarily referring to boulders and giant rock or solid rock. It could be hard sand, it could be gravel, it could be pea gravel, it could be rock. The point here is the hard bottom areas absorb the sunlight and stay warmer better than a lot of other targets. Therefore, the fish like to go to hard bottom areas in the fall, which are the same areas that those fish are spawning, because for the most part, the fish like to spawn on hard bottom areas. So again, that's another reason. A third reason is because in most instances, the bass are going to utilize an isolated target to spawn. Could be a stump, could be a laydown, could be a single rock, it could be a tire in the water. All of those objects are going to do two things. Those objects are going to absorb sunlight and therefore hold heat, which again, the bass are looking for. And secondly, they provide great ambush locations to take advantage of that new forage that is moved back into the shallow areas that the fish like to spawn. So you want to keep in mind that if you are out looking for fish in the fall period, a lot of times your best areas are going to be the same areas that the fish spawned in. And a lot of times that's a lot shallower water than you would expect. This time of year, you've got falling water temperatures, and a lot of times that really shallow water is going to be the stuff that cools off first. Doesn't mean the fish aren't going to be there. If the bait fish are there, the fish are going to follow behind. So from a standpoint of water temperature, that's going to be your key here. If you've got water temperature that drops to the point of fall turnover, that's when this pattern holds up the best. After fall turnover, you're going to have a bigger transition of fish because, again, some of the bait fish are going to pull out. The fish are going to start looking to go into their wintering mode. If you live up in the North Country and you're on natural lakes and you want to chase smallmouth, the smallmouth are going to leave those shallow flats that they spawned on and are up feeding on before turnover, and they're going to head to deep wintering areas. So it's not going to hold up after that. Largemouth, on the other hand, can still come into play a little bit. There'll be a lot of fish that do stay shallow for a longer period of time, but once the water temp really starts to drop down again below that fall turnover range, a lot of those fish are going to start moving out more to main lake areas or main creek arms if you're down south. And it's just not going to be a super shallow spawning type area that's going to hold the fish. But there very much is a period right around now where the best pattern that you can fish are where the fish spawned in the spring. So if you know where that happens on your lake, I recommend heading out to the lake and trying those areas. Now, you're not necessarily going to be fishing in the same manner you would in the spring, because if the fish aren't on bed, even though some people would say there is a false spawn in the fall period, a lot of times what you're going to be using are more of your moving baits, your jerk baits, spinner baits, swim baits, but you still can throw your drop shots, your Ned rigs, your jigs. It just kind of depends again on what structure you're fishing, but you can get away with fishing higher or faster moving baits higher in the water column in the fall versus in the spring. But I hope this was helpful, guys. This is something that holds up no matter where you're at in the country, and has saved the day a lot of times for me, because if you're out trying to find a bigger school of fish, maybe out deep, those fish can be harder to get to bite. You move up shallow, a lot of times you're not going to be finding those big wads of fish, but you can find areas that are holding a lot of fish and therefore have good action throughout the day. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.